Hey there, my name is Santi, and in this video, I'm gonna walk you through some of the audio systems developed for HANA the Game by Spaceboy77. The audio for this project was developed using Fmod in combination with Unreal Engine 5. So let me tell you a bit about HANA. This game is a cinematic platformer that follows the story of Hannah, a girl that explores her childhood traumas in an abstract world. The difference between HANA and other games from the same genre is that it's not a side-scroller, but instead a 3D platformer, which implies a whole new level of challenges, especially because its camera, which is not attached to the player and it follows its own path through splines, making the spatialization of the audio a challenge in which pretty much all events had to be manually tweaked using every tool at our disposal. So let's first have a look at the audio actions. Audio actions provided a system that allowed us to trigger and send any instruction to Fmod through the audio manager or through audio actors in the scene. Audio manager actions, which I call them SAM, referring to snapshot ambience and music, and scene audio actions, which refer mostly to diegetic sounds. The audio manager takes those instructions and processes them, checking if there are any valid instances of events prior to playing or stopping them. The audio manager basically executes the most essential in-game events that are not 3D. It is also in charge of loading and unloading banks at the start of every chapter and handles the audio volumes logic, but we'll get to that in a bit. As I mentioned, scene audio actions refer mostly to diegetic sound, and they allow us to communicate and trigger functionality of scene audio actors, although you can also instantiate new sounds at given locations, taking soft references from the levels. To further expand the functionality of audio actors, we created actors that inherited from that class and in most cases overrided the main events to match the needs. This is the case for platforms, which take reference from the level and bind on the functions of each one. It is also the case for proximity audio actors that takes Hannah's location and based on her proximity to the emitter sends a parameter to Fmod. They were also used in cases that we needed the actors to dynamically follow splines, like for example in levels in which you will find water in the form of lakes. So audio actions are mostly used by audio volumes which were manually placed and modeled for each room where different spatial conditions or audio instructions were needed. The need for audio volumes lies on the way that the game handles respawns. You can respawn in any part of the level that contains a save floor tag. So you might respawn in a different room from the one that you were in before. In HANA, you can go from the first room to a second room and from the second room to a first room. You can also have a third room and a fourth room, so you know exactly where the player is going to go. And what if consecutive volumes have the same instructions? How do they handle that logic? And that brings me back to the audio manager. Well, basically, the audio manager stores the essential audio actions that were triggered in the previous room and compares them with the new and current instructions. There's also a different type of audio volume that contains a spline. So following the path of that spline, we can trigger different events and send parameters to Fmod. The ambience for Hana was thought as a combination of 3 layers: evolving beds, diegetic sounds, and randomly 3D instantiated events that provide life and dynamism to the level. Beds, as well as diegetic sounds, are triggered by audio volumes, while randomly instantiated events are handled by audio zones. Audio zones allowed us to randomly instantiate multiple 3D events inside a zone or around Hana in a given distance interval. It was built using the Quartz system. Since in Unreal Engine you cannot create new timers on the run. To create a memorable and cohesive character identity, Hana also reacts to events in the world, such as finding Paradise fragments, expressing disgust, feeling scared, getting frustrated, figuring out solutions for puzzles, getting sick, and also singing. You might have noticed already that Hana can breathe. The concept is pretty straightforward. As Hana runs, climbs, jumps, and pushes stuff, she gets tired, so her breath rate gets faster and eventually runs out of breath. So the first breath system was made using a timeline in Blueprints. Using a custom flow curve, the timeline play rate would increase, switching between inhale and exhale events, and the individual inhale and exhale events would change to shorter or longer variations based on the breath state. Once we recorded the final version of Hana's voice, I moved the system from Blueprints to a more Fmod-based system, which ended up being a pretty visually disturbing but not complex event. You might find as well that in certain parts of the game, Hana also gets cold or scared. Every time Hana jumps or falls, a fall check function gets executed and determines whether it's a small to medium fall or long fall. This triggers the Hana screams, which have 2 main variations, short and long fall screams. Okay guys, so these were just a couple of the essential audio systems made in Hana. But if you want to learn more, go check out the second half video, in which I'll show you some of the insights into the different characters and the overall adaptive music systems. Take care!